and welcome back to Talk with Your Coach. I'm host Becca Goldsberry, elite sales and leadership coach with Southwestern Consulting. This podcast is all about learning from the best of the best, those who have walked the walk and talked the talk, to share their journeys, lessons, and hard-earned wisdom. We're going to discover some invaluable tips, some great things today from our guest that could transform not just your business or leadership skills, but actually your life, if this is something you're going through in your life. I'm very excited about today. So welcome to another episode of Talk with Coach. I am excited to introduce our guest today, Jennifer Struffert. We've had the pleasure of connecting and getting to know each other personally through leadership. I'm based out of Columbus, Indiana, and I can't wait for her to share with you what she does and how she helps people going through one of the most hardest times in their life. She is the founder of Enduring Connections and Advocacy. Jennifer is a relationship coach, divorce coach, mediator, parenting coordinator, and the founder of Enduring Connections and Advocacy, where she helps individuals, families, and teams navigate conflict with clarity, compassion, and courage. Grounded in lived experience and professional expertise, she brings emotionally intelligent tools to those seeking better for themselves and all meaningful relationships in their lives. Her work is fueled by a deep belief in growth, connection, and the power of showing up differently. What I love most about Jennifer is her calming presence, you guys. She can just calm down a room. She has an amazing ability to connect with others, and she has the heart to really want to serve others. So, Jennifer, welcome to Talk with Coach.
Thank you, Becca. I'm so happy to be here today.
Yeah, I'm excited that you're on. All right, let's dive in, because every single person on this planet has been affected, not just with conflict, but more specifically through divorce somehow. We've either had divorced parents, grandparents, family members, or have gone through divorce ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So I would love for you to share I want to hear your story, right? Tell me how you got into this, because you and we've talked about my previous work as a social worker, family therapist, doing a divorce group through Lutheran Child Family Services and Cross Life Ministries, to working with kids going through their parents going through divorce, right? Like, this is something that hits home, not just for me, but for billions of people. So please share with what you do, how you got into this, and just fill us all in, friend.
Absolutely. I'm happy to. So, I actually spent 20 years in corporate America. And through my own life experience, I'd been through an incredibly difficult divorce and co parenting situation, extremely high conflict. And I felt like so many things were happening to me, and I didn't know what to do. At that point in time, I had had an attorney. I wasn't sure what my next steps should be, because ultimately what I wanted was an amicable co-parenting situation, and I didn't know how to get there. And honestly, I had a lot of healing and growth to do myself in order to be able to get there. So I'm not going to pretend that I wasn't part of the equation, which is a hard part, right? It's really hard for people to look in the mirror and say, hey, like, how can I do this differently? How can I show up differently to try and make an impact on what's happening here? And so for me, it was an opportunity of the timing is right. I'd actually lost my job. Our organization was dissolved. And so it gave me time to reflect and say, what is it that I really want to do for myself and for my kids in my future? And so I decided that I obviously already loved helping people, but I wanted to take what had felt like it was happening to me and turn it into something that could help others, and just continue on my growth journey myself with relationships. And so I decided to become a relationship coach. So I'm a certified relationship coach now. That was my base. And then I got into divorce coaching. So bridging that gap for people. Everyone knows when you get divorced, perhaps you go hire an attorney. What they don't know is you need so much more support than what your attorney can provide to you. And honestly, there's some elements, there's the soft skills side of things that aren't quite therapy, but coaching fits really perfectly in that space of helping someone understand on a more tactical level, like how they can contribute differently to their relationship and show up differently in a way that might be more productive. And so I help people in that space and I love it. And I've also become a domestic relations mediator too. So I can help people who are going through that conflict. I've been there myself. I've been the client in mediation. And I know what it takes to help someone feel heard, understood, and seen in that process. And so that they can come out the process hopefully better than what they came into it. I know not everyone has the same sense of, I don't know, empathy going into mediation. For me, it's not just a process. I've sat in that seat, I've trained, I understand truly what it means to go through it. And then pairing with that, I also became a parenting coordinator as well. So I work with high conflict families to figure out how to reduce conflict and focus on the kids. And so all of these things for me, ultimately, if I'd sum it up, what I do and why, it's helping people to reduce conflict and increase connection in their lives.
So somebody's going through a divorce. How do they find you? Because what you do is very niche. There are not a lot of people that do what you do. The funny
Yeah.
part is being up here in Indianapolis, I haven't met anybody who does what you do.
Yeah. I don't know anyone that does what I
I
do either.
know. I'm kind of thinking back, even going through my master's, in social work. I don't know anybody who was ever talking about anything what you're doing, but it's so
Yeah.
needed. Hey,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of friends and family members who have gone through divorce and they needed you.
Yeah.
They their kids needed you. And so how do they find you? How do they find people like you? Do you work just locally, nationally? Fill us in.
Yeah. So coaching I can do nationally from a mediator perspective, and then parenting coordination. I need to do those within the state of Indiana. That's where I am registered. But I can help anyone anywhere with the divorce element of it. And like you, Becca, I had no idea, right? When I filed for divorce, I went to talk to an attorney. It was a few years later when a friend of mine mentioned a divorce coach to help me. And when I met her, it started to shift and change everything. It made such a huge impact in my life. And I wish that I had met with this person. I wish I knew it was a thing actually when I went through my divorce, so
Yeah,
that I had that support from the beginning, because there's so much that you just don't know. And unless you've walked through that and you've been through the other side, it's really, really hard to know and understand what that looks like. And then to have the training on top of it to know how to handle that situation. Just, yeah, it's a beautiful process.
it is. So walk us through what this looks like. Without kind of, giving names
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
specific, but how can you help in the three different buckets that you just told us about?
Yeah, absolutely. So with coaching, I help people with actionable tools that they can use to help in their day to day lives. If I think about relationship coaching, for instance, a lot of the tools that I teach people within that realm of relationship coaching is it's typically with their partner, but you can use those tools in any relationship in your life, right? Knowing and understanding how you're showing up and then having the tools to show up in a different way, how to truly support someone, how to listen better and ask the right questions in a loving, meaningful way is so incredibly important. Similarly, with divorce coaching, it's about helping people recognize, again, look in the mirror. How are we showing up? How might we show up differently? How can we communicate in a way that's going to de escalate or stop conflict as much as we have control over, right? And making sure that people are fully aware of that element, right? I can't control what anyone else does, but I can control what I do and how I contribute to a situation. And so we're going to focus on how we can change that dynamic. And hopefully, when we change, the other person changes too, right? And then with mediation, for me, it's about showing up in a caring, compassionate, almost loving way, right? These are people that are going through a really tough time. How can I listen in a way that's supportive to their needs and supportive to their children's needs and make sure that everyone gets their needs met as much as we can during that process? We all know it's not easy and it's hard when you're talking about your children and your finances and your home and all of those things. And that change is difficult. So helping people, empathizing with them and helping them understand that it'll be okay. And And then with parenting coordination, again, it's really putting the child first. What's in the child's best interest and helping people understand, again, how their communication is either helping or hurting the situation and how they might tweak or modify that to make things better for everyone.
So powerful. And I just, in my mind, as you were talking about this, I just kept going emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence, emotional intelligence. And, and so many people, as a business coach, we coach on emotional intelligence and EQ. And people are always thinking it's soft skills. Okay, these are not soft skills. These are so fundamental. Like the way we communicate, the way we ask questions, how we, talk to others is foundational.
Yeah, it's fundamental to the
Mhm.
success of our relationships across our whole lives, right?
And somehow I think the art of communication got lost. I don't know how, when, or why, but the art of communication and to have strong conversations without yelling, without blaming, that was lost by even talking, and I don't talk politics, but like even just having conversations about politics, like my
Yeah.
parents and grandparents used to talk about, you know, they used to be able to talk politics and have different opinions, but nobody ever got mad. Nobody threw tantrums. Nobody did any of these things, right? So there's a lost communication just to be able to have, even if you don't agree, how to have those skills.
I also
So
think the way that we communicate feeds into that, right? It's so easy to like disengage yourself. You're not actually talking to a person in front of you now.
yeah.
Someone you might not even know the person you're speaking to, and hiding behind that, I don't think helps our conversations or our communication.
I would agree. I'm just thinking, like, personally, literally, I think people have to sit down and like, no, we need to have like a conversation. Like, how does this go? Like, how do we have these these conversations, even if they're uncomfortable, right? Like,
Especially if they're uncomfortable.
we can't just shy away from these things. And oftentimes we do. And sometimes I think people misinterpret what we're saying, and just making sure we have good clarifying questions, I think is an important tool too that I'm sure that you use all the time.
Yeah. One of the things that I really work with people on a lot is getting curious, genuine curiosity, and trying to understand a little bit more because it's so common for people to jump to conclusions on things, or make up a story about what's happened and why. And it's not that they mean poorly by that, right? Or that they're intentionally thinking bad of the person. It's natural for us to fill in the gaps and try and you know, make that story whole. And it may not be true. And so it's really, really important to get curious and question our own perceived thoughts as well at the same time.
I also think about people needing to be able to receive and to give feedback. I know our friend Amanda talks about feedback all the time too, but taking and receiving feedback without feeling like you're being criticized, because you're not. Most times you're not being criticized, but we take it so to heart that we just misconstrued everything somebody probably told us. And we miss what was being said because we only took bits and pieces of what we wanted to hear.
I also think there's ways for us to say it that cause more connection versus disconnection. A
Mm.
lot of the ways that we've learned how to communicate with each other over time, either it's been modeled to us or it's been working for us in the short term, actually causes disconnection versus connection, which is what we're trying to get, right? If we are having a conversation with someone we have an unmet need, we're trying to connect with them. And oftentimes the way that we say it is actually causing disconnection and we don't even think about it.
Okay, can you give us an example?
Yes, I would love to.
Yeah.
Because this is one that I've heard, and I'm guessing that people listening to your podcast might have heard as well. So, have you ever heard from your partner, like you're working too much, that work is more important to you than your family, or, the list goes on,
Mhm.
right? I'm not important enough. That's causing disconnection. So, what if we reframed that and said something instead like, I love how important your work is and how it contributes to the overall well being of our family. I also would love to do some fun activities with you this weekend because I miss you. What would you like to do? And I can plan it. How does that feel?
Feels so much better. And the crazy part is, if people would just ask it in that way, how many marriages would be saved?
Because
Right?
it's not even
That
just
one
about
thing.
that one thing,
Nope.
right?
Nope. I'm just thinking that's a fantastic example because when it's asked the first way that you talked about it, most people would have been very defensive and then a yelling match. And then we're screaming and, saying hurtful things and things that probably aren't true, but there's a little bit of truth to it and it just escalates. And then now we've got a full fire happening and we can't
Yeah.
extinguish it. Now we go to bed angry, and when we go to bed angry, we wake up angry, and then it is a vicious freaking cycle.
Yeah. And then maybe a lot more things come out that didn't need to either
That's
in
right,
a hurtful way.
in a hurtful way. And you can't take those things back. I'm sorry. People say you can, but you can't. Like if you say something, it is always in our head. It's always remembered. You can be forgiven,
For sure.
but most time people can't forget.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
You got it.
So in those instances, as divorce coach, relationship coach, somebody has, one of these fire alarm conversations and they come to you a couple days later, then what? Then what happened?
Ooh, that's when we start getting curious with one another.
Okay.
Um, I'm going to talk to people about like, tell me more about your work and what you do in that specific example, right? And I might ask their partner, like, what benefits do you get from them working the job that they work? Is there any good things that come out of that, right? To help them understand what that looks like. And maybe I might ask the other partner, would you like to spend more time at home doing fun things with your family? And start debunking the story that's been made up, if you will. Maybe not to cause harm, but because someone's hurting and wanting connection. And the tools in their toolbox help them reach for disconnection instead of connection. And so I might start there. And then we might start getting curious with one another as well about how might we, open-ended questions, how might we start spending more time together? What would that look like? What would be most meaningful to you? And we could go on and on.
So many things. Yeah. Yeah. I'm just thinking so many doors probably can be open just from asking those questions. Sometimes I wonder if people don't understand what each other are actually feeling and thinking. They just assume. So what happens when we assume?
Yeah.
Make that of you and me, right? Like,
Exactly.
so I think assumptions. And I wonder if it kind of goes back. I've had a couple guests come on too that say texting, social media, because so many things are so instant
Mhm.
gratification. We treat our relationships that way. And it can't.
Not if you want them to last.
Right.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. I always tell people my grandma and grandpa Smith, they were married for almost 60 years before my grandma passed, and they never had a fight.
Wow.
I know grandma and grandpa both said they never had a fight. Now, were they frustrated at some point? I'm sure.
Yeah.
Like an argument, fight, grandma and grandpa said they never did. And grandma always told me, when I was getting my master's and she was
Yeah.
looking at some of my books, and all the different things. And she literally mentioned, she goes, it's because we always talked and we always decided that old saying, never go to bed angry,
Yeah.
talk it out, you know, and she goes, don't make decisions for the other person either. Right. Before you make big
Exactly.
decisions, she goes, just communication, and this was back in 2005 or 2002 when she's telling me this. So at that time, think of our cell phones completely different from what they
Yeah.
were, like the flip phones or the Blackberries, And she goes, we didn't have these texty thingies.
Yeah.
So we would literally have to look at each other face to face, body language,
Yeah.
to actually communicate. And I think that is missing.
It's
We do it all by
absolutely
text.
missing.
We all do it by text. We miss it all
And there's so much you don't see there, right?
so much.
You don't see body language. You don't see any like intent behind it. You don't know if they're smiling, if they're angry, or the person that, sends the caps lock text all the time. You don't know if they're really angry. There's so much that's missing from a context perspective.
From a business standpoint, people are always emailing and texting, like prospecting, like when they prospect for
Yeah.
new clients, they just send like emails and email campaigns and text messages. And I always ask my clients, why aren't you just picking up the phone and having a conversation? And it is so foreign to so many people. And the funny part is, most of them like when they actually make those phone calls, they actually talk to people, they set appointments, and because the other person on the line is excited to actually have a good conversation with somebody, you know? I think we get so tired of I get tired of texting and emailing. I get tired of people using social media as just the only tool to
Yeah.
communicate. It's exhausting.
And it makes people lonely too.
Yeah,
Right? We're more connected than we've ever been, but people are more lonely than they've ever been because they feel isolated and alone. They're not having that human
absolutely.
connection.
And that's what we're missing, I think, is human connection, even more so after COVID. We're just missing so many skills got lost for a year.
But the good thing is we can learn them.
That's right. We can change it.
But we can learn them.
So speaking of learning them, what would be a couple of tips of relearning to communicate? What would you tell people? Like, okay, these would be great steps for you.
Ooh, I think getting curious, not jumping to conclusions, and challenging yourself if you do that. So asking someone open-ended questions goes a really long way in a genuine way, right? Not in an interrogation, but in a genuine way. Also, thinking about the way that we ask for our needs to be met. So, thinking about ways to communicate to someone in a way that shows that we care, just like the example what we talked about, where maybe one person in a relationship feels like the other is working too much. So, how do I share that information in a way where the need that I have is I would like to have more time with you? The need that I have isn't necessarily you working less, but how do we make this happen? So, focusing on the need and communicating that and showing each other more appreciation would go a really long way.
Goodness, I'm just the kid, right? I think about all the kids that go through so much when parents go through divorce. How when you come home or when you're home in the evenings after a long day, how do you just, like, shake it off? Oh, because that was hard for me, after a day of counseling and working with kids going through divorce and doing the divorce groups, sometimes you have to find ways to not take it home with you. How do you do that for you?
It's hard because it always comes home with me anyway, right? Like, I love my work. I really care for the kids that I work with and the families that I work with. And so it comes home no matter how I try hard, not to, it still comes home. So some of the things that I do is I do different regulating techniques to help myself. I also just spend time and try and do fun things with my kids too, right? Because my life is work, but it's also my family and my partner and making sure that the people in my life feel loved as well. And so really making sure they understand, especially with the work that I do, that I don't take for granted my family. And I show them appreciation and gratitude and kindness and love and all of the wonderful things that I want them to have in their lives.
I love it. So when you're working with the kids, fill us in on what this looks like. And I'm sure it's different with every kid, every family. I know some kids are very guarded, especially the older they
Mhm.
are.
Yeah.
They've built walls, and but there's super young kids too that don't understand what's even happening.
Yeah. So I kind of meet them where they're at. I love kids. I have kids. And so for me, it's just fun to get to know who they are. And that's kind of my primary goal and objective, right? Is to just understand who they are. And I'll worry about the other stuff later. But my first course of action is to establish a relationship with the child first. And once we do that, I think some of the other pieces come more easily. But it's just so critical to, be there for them, be transparent with them, get to know who they are, and show up for them, and the rest comes.
So I know that lately you and a couple others in the community have been doing workshops, some trainings. What does that look like and how can people partner with you? Because I know
Yeah,
you partner with a lot of others in the community, kind of getting the word out, helping people in the community where you can. Share with us a little more about that.
absolutely. So, recently I did an emotional development workshop with San Susi, and it was just a wonderful experience to work with that group of people and hearing their feedback. I feel like we don't give people enough emotional development education, even in schools. So working with adults now to help them understand different elements of relationships has been so important. And then hearing from them how impactful that's been in their lives has been just absolutely heartwarming for me. So I love doing that kind of work. It could be with adults, it could be teens, just helping people better understand what those relationships look like and make sure that we're building the emotional skills that people need for life. Also doing a boundaries workshop tomorrow, in fact, with Sky Nicholson. She's amazing. And so she and I are going to help people establish healthy boundaries in their lives. I know there's a lot of stigma maybe around boundaries and that they might be negative. They're not at all. And so she and I are going to work with some folks tomorrow to help them do that, which I'm really excited about. And I've been doing some work with corporate groups as well, helping them to better connect and more deeply connect with one another. So put aside the staff meeting for the day, that agenda, and we're going to focus on having deeper connection with one another to build our team up to better support one another. So,
Such a great idea. I
yeah.
love that. So, what's one or two defining moments that actually shaped your career path?
Interestingly, when I lost my job, I feel like it was one because it completely shifted my life. I had had an electrical engineering degree. I had worked at a Fortune 150 company. I had intended on being there for my career. And as I had been there, I had moved around a lot, but I had been moving closer and closer to the people side of things because that's where my heart and my passion was. And so having that shift happen and having the opportunity to step back and say, okay, what do I want to do with my life, right? What do I want to do? How do I want to leave my mark and how can I help people? So that I feel like was a really key defining moment for me.
Pretty massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always big. And then, if I remember correctly, you also lived in the Harry Potter castle before Harry Potter was famous.
Yeah. I did.
You got it.
That was
That's a fun little tidbit. Like, how did that work? Like, what were you doing?
okay. So I grew up on a dairy farm in central Minnesota. I had not traveled very much at all. We were tied to that farm.
Most
Which makes
Romans are.
sense, right? It goes with the territory. But when I went to college, I saw a poster up on the wall of the castle and I was like, I'm going to live there. I'm going to go there. I'm going to do this. And so I just set my mind to it. And I feel like that was a defining moment for me in my life. I would highly encourage anyone to go on a study abroad program because it changed my perspective in so many ways. And I was so fortunate to be able to do it. I would do it all over again if I could. And it's also kind of fun to say that I lived in the Harry Potter castle before the films came out, but that also dates me too.
I was gonna say, no, that is really fun. That is really cool. Yeah, I also studied abroad, and that was also one of my best decisions. It's on one of the top 5 because it just shapes you learn different things, you appreciate different cultures, you I think you grow faster in who you really are and who because we're so sheltered and then when you're out on your own, 8,000 miles away, 6,000 miles away, you really, I think, get a sense of actually who you are as a person quicker.
For sure. Absolutely. I love that you had that experience too.
I did. It was so much fun. I was on I guess it'd be kind of like the northwest side of London in Oak Hill. Yeah, Oak Hill College is where we were. And it was like the best 4 months ever because then literally we got to travel all over Europe before and then during, the program. And I wouldn't exchange any of those moments for anything. It was all.
Same. Absolutely. It was worth every penny.
Yep. So, starting a business as a business owner, let's switch gears here. Business owner, first year, biggest hurdles, biggest obstacles. I guess the first question before that one, let me ask you this. When you decided, I'm going to start my own business, how did you imagine it before you started it?
How did I imagine it before I started? I did not imagine the roller coaster that I was going to embark on.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think of, at least for me anyway, I shouldn't say I thought of like the businesses around me. I see thriving local businesses. They're busy, they're doing their thing, they're doing their craft. And for me, it was different. And it is different because I sit in a different space and I don't know anyone else that does exactly what I do. And so part of that is educating, right? Helping people understand what I do. So I spent a lot of time educating and networking and, trying to get my name out there and my business out there. So it's been it's been fun, but it's also I don't want to downplay the anxiety I feel like that's gone with it around like, will this be successful? When will I be able to pay myself, right? Like that was a big thing.
Yeah.
I've since done that, which is exciting.
That is always exciting when we can paycheck. Yes,
And
yes.
I have a whole new appreciation for entrepreneurs than I ever had because it's a lot when you're a one person show starting from scratch. It's a lot. So I love it. I've learned so much and I wouldn't change that element of it. But if if I could go back and tell myself, like, you need to be patient, it's going to take time. People don't know what this is yet, right? They don't know how it can help them. I would definitely do that. And it helped so much having other people tell me about their experiences. And honestly, it's been women who've told me about their experiences as entrepreneurs and just, comforting me in that moment of, oh my gosh, what am I doing? Did I make the right decision? Just letting me know that they've felt that too, right? That they've felt that multiple times, not just once. I've felt it multiple times, not just once as well. And, just keep at it and keep working hard. And I've loved that most people have shared with me just when you think you are going to give up, then the next moment something big happens.
Absolutely.
And I feel that. I really truly have felt that when I've, questioned myself deeply about is this the right thing, then something fantastic happens.
I was going to say, I always tell people if you just do the activity, and that looks so different for everybody, whether it's making calls, networking, having conversations, getting warm introductions to people that can help you grow your business. As long as you're doing the activity, you will get the results that you want and hit those goals. But it's just the consistency and making sure you're consistent and you're laser beam focused on those things, and it'll all work out. It really will. Yeah. So, okay, what is a common mistake you see in your field or field-ish, because you're so unique?
Yeah.
Like, how do you avoid it?
Oh, honestly, the thing that I would change if I could or
Yep.
invite more people to do is I would invite more people to think about bringing coaches into their lives. I think that's a huge gap. Having tangible tools that you can use like that day, we're going to practice them in the first session is huge. Whether that be in your relationship or in divorce coaching, I think that I could have changed the trajectory of my co-parenting experience if I had had a relationship coach up front, a divorce coach up front, right? Like if I had that, I think it would be in a totally different space than where it is today. And I've done a lot of work, right? But yeah, I think that things would look a lot different. And I think other people would have great success with and much better divorce experiences having that coach to guide them along the way.
Okay, so one of the last questions I always ask people is, as a business owner and entrepreneur, what are 3 practical tips or thoughts that you would share with others for helping them start, grow, or lead others?
Mm.
So I'm making you think, right?
So for leading others, because I did that for a really long time, and I think that's a critical role for people, putting people first. For me, it was really important to take care of the person first and then worry about the work. Because if the person isn't okay, then your work suffers from it. And so making sure that to put people first and that they were okay, like that for me was my number one priority. And so that is something that I would have to say is at the top of my list. For people starting a new business, I think I would talk to others who've done it or talk to more people that have done it before getting started. For me, I couldn't necessarily talk to other people who were doing the same thing, but maybe having conversations about what that looked like for them and getting very curious about not just taking high level answers, right? But digging a little deeper to what that really looked like, what it really felt like to help me better prepare myself for what I was going to be doing and what that path might look like for me. So I think that's really important. And Becca, I think you asked 3 things and I
Oh,
just answered
it's
2.
no, it's okay. And is there something else that you would give advice for people to do?
I think trust yourself and step out of your comfort zone because I feel like that's where the most growth happens. I'm an introvert. And for me to go to networking events in Indy by myself, if I would have said that I was going to do that a year or two ago, I'd have been like, you're not going to go to a networking event where you have to talk to people by yourself. And I do that now, right? And that's not something I would have done before. I'm very comfortable one on one. I love doing one on ones. I love small groups where I know people. It's harder for me to go network with people that I don't know by myself.
Right? I love it. I love it. Okay. So one last question, and I haven't asked it in a while, but it always, to me, gives an insight of the person is, and I didn't prep you for this one. So this one, you might have to think for a second, but can you tell us one funny story about you growing up?
Funny story about me growing
Yeah.
up. Becca, that's hard.
No. My mom, somebody asked me about this, about myself and like some fun tidbits. And like I called my mom, I was like, what can I say and not get in trouble? It's what I
Yeah,
asked my
that's
mom.
what I was just thinking. So I do have a funny story. I don't know if it's appropriate, so you do with it what you want. And I just talked to someone about it the other day. So in high school, I was in cheerleading, and my friend's mom was driving the van, and my friend was sitting behind me, and she said, Jenny, shut the fuck up. And her mom, mortified, goes, Sarah, what did you just say? And I blurted out instantly, Jenny, buckle up really fast. And so everyone burst out laughing. It was like,
Oh my gosh.
that was a
That
fun moment.
that is funny. That is funny. Way to cover your friend's rear end. Good job. I love it. I love it. I am so glad that you were able to be on so we can share, what you do and how you help so many people. How can people get with you if they're going through a divorce? Their kids might need help, or they don't want to go through a divorce and they just need help in a relationship. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for having me. I would say to go to my website. It's enduringca.com. I'm also all over social media on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and TikTok, all the places.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Awesome. Yes.
thank you so much.
You are welcome. Thank you for being on. I'm so glad we were able to do this. Everybody, this wraps up in another insightful episode of Talk with Coach. A huge thank you to Jennifer for sharing her valuable knowledge, wisdom, insights on a topic that is probably near and dear to so many of us. If today's episode resonates with you, or if you have a burning topic you'd like for us to discuss, please share a comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the YouTube page, and then also on Spotify or wherever you listen. Until next time, remember every step forward is a part of your success story. Keep striving for greatness, keep learning, and don't forget your journey is just the beginning.